Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. Ishiguro is not just one of my favorite novelists of the last 30, 40, 50 years, but he's one of my favorite novelists of all time. And back there on my all-time shelf, you'll find The Remains of the Day. I haven't actually reviewed any books from my all-time list. I will at some point. But when a novel like The Remains of the Day comes out, a big problem for someone like myself is that you keep chasing that novel in the author. And I would say this is a mistake on my part because it's unfair to ask a novelist to keep delivering the same book to you in the way that you want it to be delivered and not to give that author creative freedom. Whereas, let's say you can say all Dickens books are Dickensian in their own way, and there's a through line. I would say there's a similarity for Ishiguro in that Ishiguro is always talking about relationships and love and memory, and then he'll add one more thing to make that book distinctive. And so it seems that all of his books are in conversation with each other. Now, I say all of his books. I haven't read all of his books yet, but the books of his that I have read seem to have this similar theme, which means basically they just continue to develop this idea, which in itself is this fun, wonderful commentary. So Ishiguro has won the Nobel Prize for Literature. I think he won that in 2017. So this book, which came out in 2021, is his first book since since that Nobel Prize. And before then, I think, was The Buried Giant, which is a book of his that I read, again, coming from The Remains of the Day, thinking this is going to be like The Remains of the Day. I love this author, and it wasn't. And even though I didn't like The Buried Giant, I still think as a novel it's okay. It's certainly worth reading. And I think there's a film adaptation of Klara and the Sun coming out in 2025, directed by Taika Waititi of Thor Ragnarok and other films fame. So, who is Klara? What is the Sun? So Klara is an artificial friend, what the book reduces to the phrase AF, just the initials. And an artificial friend is a robot that has really developed intelligence and maybe companions for people who are ill, or maybe people who are isolated, or maybe just people who want an accessory, a fashion statement of sorts. This robot manages to learn and tells us this story from her perspective and her relationship with the sun, which in some ways is, well, in one way is practical. She's solar powered, and in another way is semi-religious. But well, I don't want to. I usually don't get into spoilers when I talk about novels because I want to encourage you to read it. But there is a major role through line from start to finish about the sun and its role in this novel. So I'm just going to say that it's semi-religious. Now, how do you find out that Klara is solar powered? Part of it is the anti-world building form that Ishiguro uses. And by that I mean, normally when we think about world building, there's some exposition, there's some way in which the author wants to tell you that story. And Ishiguro doesn't ever do that. He will let you figure things out through a sort of drip process. But he doesn't ever come and tell you, in this world, this is what's going on. You just have to figure it out. And most times, he only tells you what he needs to fill out the story. He won't give you more details. That may be frustrating for people who are used to, let's say, general world building in science fiction or dystopian novels. For others, it may be charming in a sense of not being given an overload of information, but being allowed to just pick what you need in order to fill out the story. So I'll give you an example of this anti-world building idea. So I suppose they have a point, though, he said. I don't belong here. This is a meeting for lifted kids. Now, this character who's saying this is a companion, is a friend of Josie. Josie is the human that Klara, our AF, is assigned to. This is the first time we hear this word lifted kids. And you have to think, oh, okay, what is a lifted kid? And at this point, you may need to make notes for yourself to figure it out. Now, it's not what Ishiguro is asking you to do is not rocket science. He's not asking you to put together some sort of very difficult clues, a la some Sherlock Holmes novel, but he is asking you to follow a lead and say, "Oh, okay, this is when we say lifted kids, this probably alludes to such and such." So he drips information for you, but it's not supposed to be cryptic. It is stuff that you'll need to know. And the idea of lifted kids and what's going on in the society is something that is a motif that grows throughout the novel, particularly with these two friends. And what else is interesting is Josie's artificial intelligence grows in that she takes experiences from her interactions and then can cogitate on them and then develop unique and interesting approaches. She can also draw conclusions. I naturally then, in the days that followed, I thought often about why the interaction meeting should cast no shadows at all, but Morgan's Falls, despite my complying with Josie and the mother's wishes, had produced such consequences. Again, the possibility came into my mind that my limitations, in comparison to a B3's, a lower model, or higher model, sorry, had somehow made themselves obvious that day, causing both Josie and the mother to regret the choice they'd made. If this were so, I knew my best course was to work harder than ever to be a good AF to Josie until the shadows receded. At the same time, what was becoming clear to me was the extent to which humans, in their wish to escape loneliness, made maneuvers that were very complex and hard to fathom, and I saw it was possible that the consequences of Morgan's Falls had at no stage been within my control. So what's beautiful about Klara is she has this very childlike attitude about everything because she doesn't have any preconceptions. She has her programming and then she learns from the environment around her. And so often she delivers sort of beautiful childlike commentary that still possesses this mature ability to understand people and understand where they're coming from. Um, it's beautiful, and I think it's something that we can envy as humans as we see this machine observe us and think about how we might do better with our fellow humans. So here's a meditation on the landscape. In particular, okay, sorry. The answer is yes, I do miss England. In particular, I miss the hedges. In England, the part of it I'm from anyway, you can see green all around you, and always divided by hedges. Hedges, hedges everywhere, so ordered. Now look out there, it just goes on and on. I suppose there are fences somewhere in the midst of it all, but who can tell? She became quiet, so I said, I believe there are indeed fences. It's really 3 separate fields, fences dividing them. You can tear down a fence in a moment, she said, then put up another somewhere else. Change the entire configuration of the land in a day or two. A land of fences is so temporary. You can change things as easily as a stage set. I used to act, sometimes in decent theaters, wretched theaters too. Fences, what are they? Stage design. That's the nice thing about England. Hedges give a sense of history properly set down in the land. I mean, it's such a beautiful line, and if you've been to England, you get that sensibility, and it's wonderful to hear it communicated in this way. And so this is an inventor, doctor, however you want to phrase it, Mr. Capaldi, who is commenting on the ability to transfer consciousness from a human into a machine. And it's interesting because Josie's mother and father are at odds with this. One is very old-fashioned and says, I don't think this is possible. The other says, oh yes, it's possible. We can just be uploaded and downloaded. And this is a conversation that still goes on among transhumanists, people like Peter Thiel, the people at Singularity University. They just think we can live forever and we can upload our consciousness to things. That's a different conversation for a different time. But it's a conversation somewhat alluded to within this book, which I think is helpful. So the mother is saying, could Klara become a vessel for Josie, the child? Yes, she can, Mr. Cavaldi said, and now Klara's completed the survey up there. I'll be able to give you scientific proof of it. Proof she's already well on her way to accessing quite comprehensively all of Josie's impulses and desires. The trouble is, Chrissy, you're like me. We're both of us sentimental. We can't help it. Our generation still carry the old feelings. A part of us refuses to let go. The part that wants to keep believing there's something unreachable inside each of us. Something that's unique and won't transfer. But there's nothing like that. We know that now. Trust the science. You know that. For people our age, it's a hard one to let go. We have to let it go, Chrissy. There's nothing there. Nothing inside Josie that's beyond the Klaras of this world to continue. The second Josie won't be a copy. She'll be the exact same, and you'll have every right to love her just as you love Josie now. It's not faith you need, only rationality. I had to do it. It was tough, but now it works for me just fine, and it will for you. I won't tell you where this goes. As I said, I can talk about some areas of the book, but I think that's just a plot point. It's not something that gives a conclusion. And I do think the conclusion of the book is a wonderful one. And it's something that continues to grow with me over time. I find that if you find a book's ending stays with you and continues to get better from time, and I think it's probably been 4, 5, 6 months since I read this book, then I think that it is a testament to the power of the ending and that it was a good one. So, Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, as I would generally recommend, Ishiguro books are to be read. Would this be the first one I would recommend? It wouldn't be a bad one. It wouldn't be a bad one. Among the ones that I've read of his before, I think it's as good of an entry into Ishiguro's work as any other book. So I am not yet at the stage in which I would recommend an order of Ishiguro books. That may change as I review Ishiguro books for the channel in the future, but for the moment, I think you could start with this. And you can order the book using one of the links in the description below. That's one way that you can support the channel. You could also support the channel by sending a super like, super thanks, a little heart button there in YouTube, or you can use Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal. That's also linked in the description below. If you'd like to support me on an ongoing basis, there's a link to Patreon or become a YouTube member. That way you can get early releases of videos like this one and talk with me behind the scenes about questions you have or my process of selecting books. If you'd like to nominate a book for 2025, my Amazon wish list is below. And a reminder that in 2024, a portion of the proceeds from different avenues for the channel are going to go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund, which helps Palestinian children who could not otherwise get medical care get that medical care. Please take a look at that link in the description. Go see them yourself, support them directly or support them indirectly by supporting this channel. Until next time, enjoy your reading.